Aloha everyone, this is another quick video I'm going to do on my homophone series in response basically to Danny the Pied Piper Wilton. So in the first video I made, I proved that these so-called homophones are really more like the samophones, which in other words they're not just sounding the same, they actually are rooted from the same meaning. And so I have another character who's been around for quite a while following me and several times has tried to prove me wrong and then keeps losing time and time again. But he's here once again, I guess, making some video about the Bible and saying how these words are not related, blah blah blah. So I'm just going to address a couple of them and just kind of school them a little bit. So one of his examples of homophones was the word see, then sea like the ocean, and then saw as in you've seen it, and then like a saw when you're sawing something. So homophones are words that sound the same, they have the same phonetic sound, but the spelling and the meaning are supposedly different. For example, we say see for the letter C, and then we say see for our eyesight, our vision, and then we say the sea for the ocean. And of course we say that we've seen it or we saw it, but then the word saw is like when you saw something. So what does it have to do with you saw something and sawing? I will explain. So let's begin with the word see, which is our eyes that have vision and sight from the light. And then we have the ocean, which we call the sea, S-E-A. And the ocean is called the sea because the ancient mariners would describe it as far as the eye can see. And of course the ancients believed that anything that held a liquid substance or a crystallized substance which reflected the light had the essence of God in it. And that's why water is so sacred, because that's what we're born from. We're birthed from water. And thus water is the source of our life, and is always related to the goddess female, which is exactly why the water is known as the mare, or the Mar, from Mars in March, the springtime, when the goddess Earth is reborn again in springtime, which is why we have Mother Mary, named after March, when March has a little spring lamb. Thus Mary had a little lamb. So the mare and the mar is the waters of the goddess, and that's why the deepest trench on earth is called the Mariana Trench. And that's why we have mermaids. And of course this is why Mardi Gras is also the fertility festival of March, thus the Fat Tuesday of her fatty. Which brings us to the symbol of the goddess Yoni, her vagina, which is the goddess symbol of the Vesica Piscis, or the Vesica Pisces. Thus, the goddess Pi and her seas. Thus, the two fish of her fishy, fatty, and the fisherman is the seaman. Thus, the fertility of the semen, or the seed of the male, that is in the great ocean or the great sea, looking for the cell, the sea of the cell, which of course is the seed of life. And remember that I said that anything that sparkled or held the light, like water or crystals or diamonds do, it was considered a symbol of God, or in this case, a goddess. So the light of Ra, or Ray, the sunlight, would shine and sparkle and reflect off the surface of the water. And that's why the Bible says the Son of God walks on water. You see, the human eyeball, the fertility of the ball in the eye, the eyes would reflect the light, and they also appear to be watery, like the sea. And of course our watery eyes are the windows to our deep soul, the soul of the sun. And of course the sun is our eternal life here on earth. And the great religion that worshiped the sun, the Egyptians and the pyramids and the worship of the light of Ra, or Ray, gives us all of our Re words, or Ra words, as in the rebirth, reborn again Son of God, and the book of Revelations. And of course, our Re legions, legions of the sun god Re, religion. And of course, this is why they worship the Son of God on Sun's Day, in the morning when the sun rises. Even in Hebrew, the word Ra'ah means to see, which brings us to the eye of Ra, or Re. It's the eye of Ra that gives us our sun Ra eyes. And as far as the eye can see is the horizon, or the Horus Ra Eisen. And of course the red sun of Ra, or Re, gives us the color red. You see, most people don't actually realize that Horus, or Ra, actually has two eyes. The two eyes of God. The brother and sister, the two brothers, whatever you want to say, but it's the moon and the sun, which is the two great lights, the lesser light and the greater light of day and night. In fact, that's why the god Odin lost an eye and was blind in one eye, because the moon is the dark light and the sun is the bright light of the daytime. So we find this ancient story of the sun and the moon battling, and of course we see here Sin, the moon god, stabbing Shamash, the one-eyed sun god. And we find the same story with the storm god of fertility and the sun god Ba.L and the Ba.L cycle, where he gets stabbed in the side, which of course is exactly like Jesus, or the Son of God, who is also stabbed in the side. So Horus loses his left eye and gets it poked out by Set. And of course this is why in the Passion of Christ they show Jesus with the one eye, because he is the Son of God. And that's why it's the theme in countless Hollywood films of poking out the left eye. And of course this all-seeing eye, or the one eye, is the symbol behind the Illuminati, or the Freemasonic orders and the secret societies. And that's why we see all of their symbolism of the one eye in Hollywood films. So when the god of chaos, Set, poked out the eye of Horus, this gives us our word sunset. Thus the sun has been set down and will go to the underworld, where the goddess of the abyss is from, or the Leviathan, the serpentine dragon. So the sun would sit, or set, like when you set something down, or you sit down. And the past tense would be sat, as in, I sat down. This is why the fertility sex worshippers of the sun and moon are the ones at the Vatican that are known as the Holy See. And of course the Holy See has the symbol of the two keys, the gold and the silver, which are the two keys to heaven and hell, or the sun and the moon, the gold and silver. And of course this dualistic principle, or this deity of two, is the same as black or white, or red and blue. And the Roman Vatican Holy See comes from the word seat. Thus he is seated, and he has sat and will sit upon the throne. And of course that's why the goddess Isis sat upon the throne, exactly like the queen does today. Because all of the ancient gods and goddesses of the old world always sat upon the throne. They sat upon the Holy See, because being the Most High is where you can look and see everything, looking over the masses, or the sea of people. And of course this is why the Hebrew god of the B.I.B.L.E, or the Torah, is the god who sits upon the throne. So the bull god of heaven sits upon the throne El, and of course the bull god of hell sits upon the throne as well, as above, so below. And of course when you watch the new film called As Above, So Below, the whole film is about going down the rabbit hole to hell. And of course, they even show you the bull god. And of course, the ancient fertility symbol for the sun is the bull's eye. So the bull, or the golden calf, is the moon, it is the sun, it is sin, it is Shamash. So the crescent moon is the lunar bullhorns of God. The Hebrew God, that is. So the crescent is the Christ, it is the Christos, it is the crescent of the lunar bullhorns of the moon, as well as the letter C. So that's why crescent is spelled with the C, as well as the word create and creator. Recently in my sex magic video, I explained how the shape of the C is the waters or the sea of the goddess. And I explained that it's the shape or the symbol of the power symbol, thus the male entering the female. And of course, the letter C also resembles the shape of a wave, the C shape. And even the eye that we see with also looks like the letter C, and thus the C resembles the eye. In fact, our vision is known as a bi vision, like the Bible. Thus we have the double vision, which is visible, and that which we can see or view, which is in our sight, it is known as a binocular field of view, which is in the shape of a C. Now remember that the moon controls the water or the ocean or the seas. In fact, that's why we have the lunar seas or the lunar mare. So the lunar moon controls the waves, the swells, the tide, which of course brings in the sets. So the waves rise and then they set down. So the way that the water moves, the movement, just like the wave in the movement, going back and forth or up and down, in and out, is the teetering and the tottering of the waves. And of course, this is why we wave our hands back and forth. It's the bobbing up and down, the wave, the current, the teetering and tottering, or the seesaw of the ocean. So the ancient seamen that were on the sea, the ocean, saw the ocean as it going back and forth, up and down, constant movement. So you see the sea is current and the saw is past. So this is a seesaw motion, which is exactly why when you ride on a seesaw, you're going up and down. So when you saw something, it is implying the down motion. Thus you saw it off or down. Thus the saw is named because of the motion it does, back and forth. You're seeing and you're sawing. So now you understand why they call it the seesaw when we're playing as kids going up and down, because it's like the ocean waves. Now our eyes are hardwired for movement. In fact, when we're looking or we're seeing, it means to follow. So what we're doing with our eyes is we're looking back and forth, left to right, which enables us to see and saw. In fact, the letter C implies the action of going back and forth and not completing a circle. And by the way, the German See means the sea or the lake. And it's the watery waves when you are watching something, the wavelengths are coming to you, and thus the reason that our eyes watch our watch, because our watch tracks the movement of time, which is the sun and the moon. And by the way, the letter C is the Hebrew B.I.B.L.E letter, which actually comes from the Paleo-Hebrew pictograph of a foot, which implies movement or motion. And that's exactly why the number 3, the B.I.B.L.E, implies motion, which is why we always say 1, 2, 3, go. And I am sorry I ran out of time here at the end, and I was going to go into how the letter C and the S are related, which is why the sun, the Selene, the moon, everything are named with the fertility of the S. Anyway, peace, love, and wisdom, everyone. Thanks for watching. Aloha.